Wow, you really weren't kidding about a deep dive, huh? I mean, human civilization, the whole thing, that's a lot to cover. You've given me articles, research papers, even some ancient poetry.
Yeah, well, I figured if we're going to do this, we got to do it right, get the full picture. But the cool thing is, it's not just like a timeline of dates and names. It's about understanding why things happen, how those events from way back when still shape our world today.
Okay, so like a crash course in Humanity 101, from the very first humans to the empires that rose and fell and everything in between.
Exactly. The turning points, the big aha moments, plus, some of the really surprising stuff that just makes history come alive.
Okay, I'm game. So where do we even begin with something this massive?
Well, the sources start us off way, way back. Think ancient ancestors, the ones who were just figuring out how to walk upright. Like Homo erectus, almost 2 million years ago, they ventured out of Africa.
2 million years. I mean, can you imagine the guts it must have taken to just walk into the unknown like that?
Right. I mean, it shows you how adaptable they were. They weren't content to just stay put. They had this drive to explore, push the boundaries, and that eventually leads them to every corner of the globe.
So from Homo erectus, we move on to the Neanderthals, right? And for the longest time, I thought they were these like brutish cavemen, but these sources paint a very different picture. They made tools, had rituals, maybe even art, way more sophisticated than I ever realized.
Yeah, it really challenges our assumptions about what it means to be human, right? The line
It
between us and them isn't as clear as we might think.
makes you wonder what their lives were really like.
For sure. And it just shows we're always learning, always revising our understanding of the past.
Okay. So we've got these early humans figuring things out. But then comes this massive turning point, something that changes everything. Agriculture. Around 4000 BCE in ancient Sumeria, it's like a light bulb went off. Hey, instead of chasing after animals, why not just plant some seeds and let them grow?
Right. And bam, agriculture is born. Definitely one of the biggest turning points in human history. I mean, think about it. Settled communities, food surpluses, specialized labor. It all leads to those first cities, the foundation of civilization as we know it.
It's crazy to think something so simple had such a huge impact. But here's something I found really interesting. These sources mention that early farmers were actually shorter than their hunter-gatherer ancestors. I always figured progress meant getting bigger and stronger.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that progress isn't always a straight line up.
Yeah.
Agriculture had its benefits for sure, but also new challenges. Think repetitive strain from farming, maybe less varied diets, and those larger populations, well, that means more disease.
So it's like every advancement comes with a trade-off.
Fascinating. But speaking of early humans pondering the big questions, like the meaning of life and all that, we get a glimpse into that with the Epic of Gilgamesh, one of the oldest stories we have. And man, it's surprisingly deep. Absolutely. It's all there. Mortality, the search for immortality, what's our purpose? These are questions that resonate across cultures and throughout time.
So from nomadic hunters to settled farmers contemplating existence, what a journey. Okay, so then we come to the age of early civilizations. And the sources define civilization as having these key elements: cities, specialized jobs, social hierarchies, writing, law. It's like we've moved from just surviving to actually thriving.
Yeah, and each civilization takes that basic blueprint and creates something totally unique. Like Mesopotamia, Egypt, the Indus Valley, China, they were all innovating, experimenting, shaping the course of history.
Okay, let's dive into Mesopotamia. This is where we find the first cities, like Eridu. It had like 50,000 people. Can you imagine? And it's where writing was invented, cuneiform, and one of the first legal systems, the Code of Hammurabi.
And the code isn't just some random set of rules. It tells us a lot about the values and social structure of ancient Mesopotamia. Like, there were tons of laws about irrigation, water was scarce, so they had strict rules about sharing and maintaining the canals. Shows how important cooperation was for survival.
Makes sense. Now, Egypt, they were obsessed with immortality. I mean, the pyramids are still standing today. They clearly weren't messing around when it came to preparing for the afterlife. It boggles my mind, the amount of planning and resources that must have gone into those things.
Yeah, the pyramids were more than just tombs. They were statements of power, symbols of their religious beliefs, and just incredible feats of engineering. I mean, aligning those massive stones with the stars. Talk about astronomy and math skills.
Now, the Indus Valley civilization, they might not be as famous as Egypt or Mesopotamia, but man, were they doing some cool stuff. Their cities, like Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa, they were incredibly well planned. Grid systems, public baths, even a sewage system.
I know, right? They had toilets before anyone else. It shows that, civilizations often innovate out of necessity. The dense urban environment, they needed solutions for sanitation and public health.
And sometimes those solutions are way ahead of their time. It's amazing. Then you have China. And these sources highlight this idea of the mandate of heaven. It's like rulers were chosen by divine right. But if they messed up, if they were unjust or ineffective, they could lose that right. High stakes performance review.
Definitely.
Yeah.
The mandate of heaven, it was used to legitimize or challenge rulers. Natural disasters, famines, rebellions, those were all seen as signs that the ruler had lost the mandate. Shaped Chinese dynasties for centuries.
So we've gone from those first tentative steps out of Africa to these incredible early civilizations. It's amazing to see how those early sparks led to such complex societies. But the story doesn't end there, right? We're just getting started. So we've seen these incredible civilizations emerge, right? Each one unique, with their own ways of life. But there's this other powerful force shaping human history, too. Religion.
Yeah, for sure. And it's not just about, what people believed. It's a driving force behind everything. Culture, social structures, even politics. You can't really separate it from these civilizations.
And these sources really dive into that. It's like religion wasn't just some Sunday thing. It influenced their entire worldview. Like
Yeah.
ancient Egypt, man, their gods were everywhere. Gods for the sun, the Nile, even childbirth. It seems like every aspect of life had its own deity.
It was a complex system, for sure. Polytheistic. Each god with their own roles and responsibilities. And the pharaohs, they weren't just political leaders. They were seen as like intermediaries between the gods and humans. Their power was totally tied to religious belief.
And those pyramids, talk about a display of power, still standing today. It's like their belief in the afterlife drove them to create something truly monumental.
Oh yeah, the pyramids were way more than just tombs. They were statements, symbols of their beliefs, and just incredible feats of engineering too. The precision and planning involved, it's mind-blowing.
Then you have this huge shift, the rise of monotheism. One God, all-powerful, all-knowing, a total game changer. The sources focus on Judaism first, and then, of course, the story of Jesus.
Right, monotheism, it was a revolutionary concept. One universal God, it changes everything about how people understand their place in the world and leads to these whole new ethical frameworks, moral codes.
And it's wild to see how Christianity, starting as this small sect of Judaism, eventually becomes the official religion of the Roman Empire. That's quite a journey.
A journey with a lot of ups and downs, that's for sure. Persecution, but also this widespread appeal. Early Christians, they were seen as a threat.
Yeah.
But their message, love, forgiveness, salvation, it really resonated. And Christianity just spreads like wildfire.
It's amazing how something that starts so small can become such a dominant force. And of course, we can't forget about Islam in the 7th century, the Prophet Muhammad.
The rise of Islam is incredible, just how fast it spreads its reach. Within a century, the Muslim world stretched from Spain to Persia, all these different cultures and languages. And it wasn't just religion. It led to these huge advancements in science, math, philosophy during the Islamic Golden Age.
Okay, so we've got all these major religions shaping the course of history. It makes you realize how interconnected it all is.
Yeah, exactly. These religions weren't just happening in isolation. They were interacting, influencing each other, sometimes clashing. It's messy, Human history isn't this neat and tidy progression. It's all tangled up.
So we've explored the ancient world, their empires, their belief systems. But now things are going to shift. The sources take us to the fall of the Western Roman Empire in the 5th century. It's like the ground is shaking
Wow.
beneath our feet. What happened? How does something so powerful just collapse?
Well, it wasn't like one single thing, right? It was a slow decline. Political instability, economic problems, pressure from migrating tribes, Visigoths, Huns. It shows even the mightiest empires are vulnerable.
And even though the Western Roman Empire falls, the Eastern Roman Empire, they're in Constantinople, they keep going for centuries. They're the Byzantine Empire, right?
Exactly. And they held on to a lot of that Roman culture and law, but they also developed their own unique identity, influenced by Greek language and Eastern Orthodox Christianity, like a bridge between the ancient and medieval worlds.
And this whole time, Islam is still spreading, moving across North Africa into Spain. It's fascinating to see these different cultures and religions interacting, influencing each other.
Totally. And, during this time, the Islamic world experienced this golden age. Thinkers like Avicenna, Averroes, they made these huge contributions to medicine, philosophy, astronomy. Their work would even influence European scholars later on during the Renaissance.
Meanwhile, back in Europe, this new system is emerging. Feudalism. Sounds a little like you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. But medieval style.
Wow.
Lords granting land to vassals in exchange for military service. Pretty hierarchical.
Feudalism, it was a way to keep things stable, maintain order in a world that was often chaotic. It was all about loyalty, obligation, military power, peasants at the bottom, tied to the land, working for their lord. And at the top, kings and nobles, fighting for power.
And during this time, you have the Crusades, these religious wars where European Christians are trying to take back the Holy Land from Muslim control. Must have been a wild time.
The Crusades, they had a huge impact on the relationship between Europe and the Middle East, that's for sure. Cultural exchange, yeah, but also violence and this lasting animosity. It's a legacy that still shapes things today.
But even with all this conflict, there were these amazing cultural and intellectual developments happening in Europe, too. Like those incredible cathedrals, just massive, beautiful structures. They must have been an unbelievable feat of engineering back then.
Oh yeah, the High Middle Ages, it was cathedral building time. These towering structures, stained glass windows, intricate carvings. It was all about expressing faith, artistry, community. They were centers of learning and social life, too.
It's mind-boggling to think about the skill and dedication it took to create those cathedrals without modern technology. And then you have these powerful monarchies rising up in France and England.
Yeah, and that shift to powerful monarchs like King Philip II of France and King Henry II of England, it signals a change away from that decentralized feudal system. They're centralizing authority, building stronger institutions, laying the groundwork for the nation-states we know today.
So much change happening, empires falling, new religions, new political systems. It feels like the world is on the verge of something big.
You're right, it is. And the next chapter takes us to a period of radical transformation, the Renaissance. It's like a reawakening intellectual curiosity, artistic innovation, rediscovering classical knowledge, like Europe's waking up from a long sleep.
And with that awakening comes a whole new wave of ideas challenging the old ways. This is where things get really interesting. Man, what a journey so far. From those first steps out of Africa to the edge of the Renaissance, it's amazing to see how those early sparks of civilization, how they lead to these huge cultural shifts, religious movements, even the rise and fall of empires.
It's quite the story, isn't it?
Yeah.
And as we move into the Renaissance and beyond, we'll see those threads keep weaving together, changing, evolving.
So the Renaissance, it's almost like Europe hit the reset button, rediscovering all that classical art and knowledge, pushing the boundaries of science and art. Da Vinci, Michelangelo, so many others, they were just exploding with creativity. What happened? Why this sudden shift?
Well, I think the Renaissance, it was this time of just intense curiosity, a real thirst for knowledge. Thinkers and artists, they start questioning the old authorities, especially the church, and they emphasize human potential, individual achievement, celebrating human reason over dogma.
And one of the big things driving this change was the printing press, right? I mean, imagine suddenly you can spread ideas and information so much faster to so many more people.
Oh, the printing press, that was a game changer, no doubt. Democratized knowledge, made it accessible to everyone, basically. It fueled the Reformation, helped spread scientific discoveries, and played a huge role in the rise of literacy and education.
And speaking of the Reformation, I mean, you can't talk about this period without mentioning Martin Luther nailing his 95 Theses to the church door. Such an iconic moment. It's like he threw a bomb right into the heart of the Catholic Church.
And Luther's challenge, it wasn't just about theological disagreements, It was this rebellion against the church's authority, a call for reform, and it sparked this religious revolution, divided Europe, led to Protestantism, big changes.
And all this is happening while Europeans are sailing off, discovering new lands, well, new to them at least, the age of exploration, the whole world opening up.
Yeah, the age of exploration, it was driven by this desire for knowledge, for wealth. New trade routes led to the Columbian Exchange, plants, animals, even diseases moving between the old world and the new world, and of course the exploitation and colonization of so many indigenous people.
A reminder that progress, it doesn't always benefit everyone equally. And then you have the 17th and 18th centuries, another massive shift. The scientific revolution, Copernicus, Galileo, challenging those long-held beliefs about the Earth being the center of the universe. Like, whoa, what else don't we know?
The scientific revolution was a total paradigm shift from geocentric, Earth at the center, to heliocentric, the sun at the center. And that challenged not just science, but religious dogma and philosophy, too.
And alongside these scientific breakthroughs, you've got all this political and social upheaval, the English Civil War, American Revolution, the French Revolution. It's a time of massive change, just constant upheaval. Were these revolutions inevitable, or was it specific events and ideas that pushed things over the edge?
Revolutions, they're rarely inevitable. It's usually a bunch of things coming together. Social inequality, economic struggles, political oppression, and new ideas spreading, like the Enlightenment, with its emphasis on reason, individual liberty, separation of powers. Those ideas, they fueled revolutions all over the world.
And then, bam, the Industrial Revolution. It's like everything goes into hyperspeed, new technologies, factories popping up, cities growing faster than ever before. So much innovation, but also a lot of social and economic disruption.
For sure. The Industrial Revolution, it was this period of rapid technological development. Textile production, steam power, iron production, all taking off. And that led to mass production, urbanization, the rise of a whole new working class, and of course, new problems too. Pollution, poverty, child labor.
It feels like this is where the modern world as we know it really starts to take shape. And as we move into the 19th and 20th centuries, it seems like the pace of change just keeps accelerating.
Oh, absolutely. Nationalism, new nation states forming, the scramble for Africa, two world wars, the Cold War. The 19th and 20th centuries were just this whirlwind, incredible progress, yeah, but also just devastating conflicts.
And we can't forget all those technological advancements that keep reshaping our world, right? Computers, the internet, space exploration. It's hard to even wrap my head around how much has changed in just a few generations.
I know, it's mind-blowing. And these technologies, they've changed everything, haven't they? How we communicate, how we work, how we even understand our place in the universe. And they bring up these whole new questions and challenges that we're still trying to figure out.
So, wow, we really covered a lot of ground here, from those first steps out of Africa to the digital age.
Yeah.
We saw empires rise and fall, new religions emerge, revolutionary ideas spread, and just this constant march of technology. It's almost overwhelming to think about how much has happened, the sheer scope of human history.
It is humbling, isn't it? And it reminds us that we're part of something so much bigger than ourselves. Each of us, just a small part of this incredible story. Human ambition, creativity, resilience, our constant drive to make sense of the world.
We started this deep dive trying to explore the whole history of human civilization, and honestly, I wasn't sure if we could pull it off, but I think we did it. We hit the highlights, found some surprising twists and turns, and maybe, just maybe, gained a new perspective on our place in it all.
And even though this particular journey is ending, the exploration, it never really stops, does it?
Yeah.
History, it's this ongoing conversation, always discovering, reinterpreting.
Absolutely. So to everyone listening, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep learning from the past, because as we've seen, the story of human civilization, it's still being written and you're a part of it.